Okay guys, we're going to be working through 19 different stocks, looking at both the daily chart and then also taking it a step further on to the 1 hour chart, and I'll explain what I'm looking at as we go. So first and foremost, I'm looking for a VCP, a cup and handle, a flag, a Davis box, so on and so forth. Stock in the context of a strong uptrend, then getting tight around these key moving averages, multiple tight candlesticks, volume drying up, relative strength, all of those good things. So we can see with ABST here in Jan 2021, comes down, finds supportive action on the 200 SMA, this red line here, then it starts putting in these higher lows, and then it starts getting really tight around the 1021 EMA on the daily chart here. And then take a look at how the volume dries up here as well. These are trigger bars. This, to my mind, is that Livermore point line of least resistance forming, where supply just stops coming to market. So it gets really tight in here, volume dries up. Then when we go down to the 1 hour chart, which is this chart here, do you see how we basically build out this Davis box? In the final 2 days, each of these vertical lines represents a day. So this is 60-minute chart, so you'll see 7 candlesticks in here. Do you see how the volume just dries up on both of these days here? Again, that's an indication supply has stopped coming to market. So looking for extreme tightness on the daily chart, even better if I can then confirm that on the 1 hour chart as well. AMD in October 2021. So it pulls back down here, starts finding support of action around the 50 SMA, undercuts here, bullish synchronicity bar. It's kind of a gap down reversal bar as well. Then it actually builds out this mini cup and handle type pattern, and then starts getting really tight here around the 1021, 50 SMA. Volume is below the 30-day average. So again, use these moving averages as a reference point for where to be dialing in, looking for setups. We go down to the 1 hour chart. The first 1 hour candlestick, you can see a lot of demand moving into this stock. I call these bullish synchronicity candlesticks. It's where you get a wide candlestick on a relative basis, opens in the low of that bar, pushes up, and it's wide on that relative basis. Really key. And the positive price action is being confirmed by an increase in volume. So this is then that little cup and handle that then builds on the 1 hour chart in that pivot of the daily structure, and then final hours or final session, it gets really tight in here and volume just dries up. Again, another subtlety. Supply has stopped coming to market. APPS in July of 2020. So stock's clearly a leader here. It's in a strong uptrend. It's riding its 10 EMA, 52-week highs coming through, and then as it pulls back over here into the 1021 EMA, gets really tight. You have an inside bar here. This is a trigger bar for me. Inside bar really tight, volume below the 30-day average, really strong. Go down to the 1 hour chart. Can you see down here how we have this shakeout demand tail, and then we just start getting really tight in here, volume dries up. You can see a bit of VCP action on the 1 hour chart as well. Really like that. Nice breakout. ASRT in July 2022. So this is a classic kind of VCP, 1 contraction, 2 contraction, finds support action around the 50 SMA and the 100 SMA, then it puts in this high low, finds support around the 50 SMA, bounces, then it goes and puts in this really tight trigger bar. You get the volume drop around about half the 30-day average, 52-week highs coming through. Really nice setup on the daily chart. You get down to the 1 hour chart. This is picture perfect. It's textbook. Do you see this final session here? Just multiple tight candlesticks underneath the pivot point. Now I'll take this a step further. I use the analogy of a marathon. If you were going to run a marathon, you would like to start as close to the starting line as possible. Why? Because you don't want to expend any unnecessary energy making it to the starting line. It's the same for a stock with a pivot point. I like to see the prior close, so of that trigger bar that I'm looking for, be really close to where I'm looking to enter. So that kind of marathon runner has to use a minimal amount of energy making it to the starting line for the race that I want them to run, for price to run, so moving through that pivot point. So this here, really good action. You can see on the 1 hour chart, little cup and handle type pattern building in there. EXLS, this is from July 2022. So it goes and builds these higher lows in here, starts setting up around the 1021 EMA, really tight trigger bar in there, volume dries up perfectly. Again, go and take a look at this on the 1 hour chart. This is building a little VCP coming through in here, higher lows, and then just look how tight it gets in here. Absolutely perfect. That's the real behavior I want to see on the 1 hour chart. Ford goes and builds a really nice VCP on the 1021 EMA, gets really tight in here. You have a couple of very tight days, trigger bars, volume dries up below the 30 average, 52-week highs on the RS line. The stock's a leader. You get down to the 1 hour chart. You can see these multiple first 1 hour candlesticks. Why is the first 1 hour candlestick important? Large operators in the market are most active first hour, last hour of the session. So you want to be very aware of those candlesticks. So you have multiple times where you have a bullish first 1 hour candlestick. Then that final session here gets really tight. The volume dries up. Picture perfect. FCX. This is in August of 2020. So the stock is moving up here. RS line in the context of an uptrend, holds the 10 EMA, then it starts getting really tight over here, puts in these trigger bars. See how the volume dries up. These trigger bars, multiple tight candlesticks, staying above these key moving averages, volume below the 30-day average, just screaming. There's hardly any supply coming to the market. You get down to the 1 hour chart, you get some really nice VCP action. So you start putting in these structural high lows. Look how tight it gets. Final session, extremely tight in there. That is exactly what I want to see. FN in March 2016. So the stock gets out here on earnings. earnings, 52-week highs coming through, pulls back down, bounces off the 50, then it starts getting really tight just underneath the 1021 EMA. Extreme dry up in the volume here. You get down to the 1 hour chart, see how price is just getting really tight in here, volume is drying up. Really nice action to see. Fastly, in June of 2020, stocks getting out on the earnings. Remember, we learn a lot about what a large operator is doing around the earnings, especially if it's a liquid growth stock and it's a leader, which Fastly was. So in June 2020, it's powering out here. Well, it's in May 2020 the earnings come through, but it's powering out here. You have price action being confirmed by the large increase in volume, ties in with a 52-week high. Then it bounces off the 10 EMA here, bounces off the 10 EMA again. Then it goes and puts in the trigger bar. So it's an inside day, really tight doji candlestick. Volume dries up, 52-week high. Stock gets out great. Go and look at it on the 1 hour chart. You can see this VCP action going on, so it just starts putting in these high lows and see all of these multiple tight candlesticks underneath that pivot point, volume drying up. There's just no supply coming to market. LEDS in May 2021, stock makes a big move here. You got big demand coming in, pulls in, finds support on the 21 EMA, bounces, finds support on the 10 EMA, puts in this really tight trigger bar. Get down to the 1 hour chart, see how tight it's getting here. You put in kind of this quasi VCP cup and handle, gets really tight in here. Big demand moving in with the volume. That is the kind of action I want to see. Moderna, so the stock makes a move up here, pulls back down, finds support on the 50 SMA, starts bouncing, and then it goes and puts in a couple of very tight candlesticks, trigger bars for me on the 1021 and 50 SMA. See how the volume dries up here. The volume dry up, okay, prior to the breakout is obviously key. Why? Because it's just signaling to me supply stop coming to market. This is the pivot point. This is then where I'm targeting the breakout. You go and take a look here on the 1 hour chart. Look how tight the candlesticks are in those last couple of sessions. Volume consistently below the 30-day average, and it's powering out that really good action to see. Novavax in June 2020. So the stock's clearly a leader. We can see it's riding these key moving averages, then it makes a big move on the earnings. Remember what we spoke about with Fastly on the earnings gap up, pulls back in, finds support on the 10 EMA, then the 21 EMA, then it goes and puts in these trigger bars. See how the volume just dries up here perfectly. Go down to the 1 hour chart, it's getting really tight here. Multiple tight candlesticks, bit of demand can be seen on these first 1 hour candlesticks as well. Really nice action. Overstock. So the stock is I think by this point here it made a move of about 700%, maybe a little bit more. Actually went up 300% before it then closed below the 21 EMA from this entry. I bought it right here on this pivot breakout. So the stock's riding its key moving averages, generally respecting the 10 EMA, bounces off the 21 EMA in here as well. Then you get 3 back-to-back trigger bars, volume just stepping down perfectly, breaks out here, then the 52-week highs come through. The stock makes a big move. You go and look at it on the 1 hour chart, and you see this cup and handle VCP type action. So it pulls back down here, then you have a higher low, and then look how the volume just dries up here on that last 1 hour, gets really tight in here, breaks out perfect. Tesla, we all know Tesla, so this is back in December 2019. So the stock makes a big move on earnings. Remember what we've been talking about on the earnings here. So it makes a big move on earnings, and then one of the things to train your eye for is multiple tight candlesticks on declining volume just signals there's hardly any supply coming to the market and or absorption of supply. Pulls back into the 21 EMA, gets really tight here, volume dries up, puts in a couple of trigger bars, breaks out, and then goes on a really nice run here. Before it closes below the 10 EMA, goes up about 135%. Before it closes below the 21 EMA, goes up 99%. These are the kind of risk multiple trades that you have to get right, especially if you're an intermediate term trend follower like me. These are the ones you want to get really dialed into and getting right. Final 1 hour, okay, you gap up, bullish first 1 hour candlestick, then it's just multiple tight candlesticks on declining volume for the rest of the session. Another one for Tesla, 30th of December 2020. So the stock's clearly in the context of an uptrend. It's a leader versus the S&P with these blue dots coming through on the RS line. Then it puts in this really nice trigger bar. Volume is dried up, or a couple of really nice trigger bars. Volume dries up in there. You get down to the 1 hour chart. You can see these structural high lows that form. Okay, contraction 1, contraction 2, contraction 3, getting really tight in here. Then it puts in another high low contraction. See how the volume dries up. Multiple tight candlesticks underneath the pivot point. Marathon runner is right there, ready to run that race. Another one for Tesla, June of 2020. So the stock's in the context of a nice uptrend here. Where is it setting up in relation to these moving averages? Again, use them as a reference point, kind of ingrain it, study these deliberately and really ingrain it, have these mental images in your head that what do big winning stocks do before they go on some really big winning runs. Important, I think, to study that on both the weekly chart, the daily chart, and also bringing in the 1 hour chart, especially when you start to see that pivot forming. It can help you tighten up the risk versus reward as well. So Tesla starts building a pivot around here, around the 1021 EMA. Volume dries up, 52-week highs, the stock's a leader. You get down to the 1 hour chart, you get some nice shakeout demand tails for the first 1 hour candlesticks, builds a little cup and handle, multiple tight candlesticks, volume dries up. Great to see. If you could also backdate this and see this here, how it's putting in these structural high lows, really nice to see, especially if on those structural high lows, you're seeing evidence that supply is being absorbed with demand tails like this. Couple more. UPST, this is in August of 2021. Stock makes a nice big move on the earnings. Remember what we spoke about, the earnings follow through demand, then it starts getting really tight in here. Volume dries up, 52-week high, the stock's a leader. Go down to the 1 hour chart, you see these first bullish 1 hour candlesticks. When a large operator is most active, first hour, last hour of the session. Then you see here, this is absolutely perfect. This over here, and also this over here as well. See how tight it gets here on the 1 hour chart underneath the pivot point, 206.47, and the volume dries up perfectly. This one here is picture perfect. And then you look over here as well through a pivot of around 230, see how it starts putting in the structural high lows, riding the key moving averages on the hourly time frame. Multiple tight candlesticks in here for the last session. Volume dries up perfectly. This here, to my mind, is the Livermore's point, the line of least resistance forming. That is when the pivot point becomes actionable for me. WB in 2016, couple here. Okay, so we've got multiple breakouts attempts, and we've got multiple breakouts, and I've got multiple charts to show you on the 1 hour as well. So again, just covering what does a leading stock do, what are kind of the main criteria you're looking for. You're looking for a stock that's in the context of a strong uptrend, displaying relative strength. You can do that via looking at MarketSmith. You can use my free tool here on TradingView. If you search Jack Corsellis RS line, relative strength line, you'll find it. Look for stocks with 52-week highs or strong relative strength lines, and then looking for a cup and handle, a VCP, a Darvis box, a high tight flag to form the stock to put in multiple tight candlesticks, pull into these key moving averages. Where are you seeing the stock set up? What key moving averages are important? Here you can see 1021 EMA, 1021 EMA, 1021 EMA, 10 EMA over here. So this is why you need to study this in a very deliberate manner, understand how these big stocks move. So when I'm looking at it here, I'm then looking for the volume to dry up on these trigger bars, and that is really good action. You can see it here again, undercuts the 21, recovers, tightens up on the 1021. Here you undercut the 21, 10, 20, the 21 EMA, talking fast, aren't I? The 1021 EMA, bounce up, really tight trigger bar in there. Here you do it again. So when you then start looking at some of these breakouts on the 1 hour chart, okay, you can see the extreme tightness here. This is the point, extreme tightness on the final day. In here as well, extreme tightness on the final day, volume drying up. That's what I want to see. Over here, you can see we kind of put in this VCP here, start building these structural high lows. A couple of really strong first 1 hour candlesticks, which is when large operators are most active. But this final session over here, do you see we gap up, doji hammer type candlestick, and then just 6 hours really tight, volume dries up. There's no supply coming to the market. Train your eye to see that. And then the final one, this is Yell in October 2021. So this is a cup and handle type pattern. So here would be the cup, here would be the handle, getting really tight, volume dries up, so nice trigger bar. You get down to the 1 hour chart, what do you see here? You see a little VCP on the 1 hour chart, don't you? Okay, it's building these structural high lows, contraction 1, contraction 2, contraction 3, getting really tight in there, volume dries up, multiple tight candlesticks on declining volume below the 30 bar average. Whether you're looking at the weekly, the daily, or the 1 hour is a signal that there is less supply coming to market, supply is stopping coming to market. That line of least resistance is forming. So that's it, guys. Going to wrap the video up there. Hopefully that was very useful for you. If you found it useful, please do like this video, comment down below if you find these kind of very quick videos useful, where I'm just speed running through lots and lots of setups. If you want to learn more about my trading and you want my top stock picks every day, then head over to primetradersclub.com. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in a future video.